Welcome to the Candidates Forum 2017 for Wyandotte County. The forum tonight is being sponsored by Business West with other co-sponsors, including the Historic Northeast Midtown Association, Central Avenue Betterment Association, Kansas City, Kansas Area Chamber of Commerce, and Downtown Shareholders. Our first candidates are Mayor and CEO of the Unified Government. I'll let them introduce themselves. Mayor?
Is this our opening statement or just introduction?
Opening statement.
And we have 2 minutes?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. I love talking about our city, and I love talking about the future of where we're headed. I'm asking for your support tonight for re-election on November 7th, and I want to thank everyone who's here tonight and everyone who's watching at home, and thank the panel for your work putting this together. I want to talk about the 2 most frustrating things in our city are the cost of living here, the cost of the taxes and the cost of the utilities. Those are 2 things that we need to cover very clearly. I have a plan that I've been working on. My opponent has been critical about some of my public policy issues, which is fair game. It is an election. I think we also need to evaluate my opponent's public record as well as an 8-year member of the Board of Public Utilities. My opponent voted in 2010 for a 7% increase in our electric rates, another 7% increase in 2011, another 7% increase in 2012, another 7% increase in 2013, a 4% increase this year, and another 4% increase for next year. That's a 42% increase in our electric rates in just his 8 years of leadership. And similarly on the water side, a 35% increase on water. We cannot afford to adopt this tax and spend model from the Board of Public Utilities for the unified government. I've been able to work with the commission to bring down our property tax rate on the Kansas City, Kansas side 10% over the last 2 years. That's the lowest rate in 50 years. We're going to continue to lower that rate steadily over time by continuing to grow our economy, by continuing to address blight, and continuing to address the cost centers in our public safety. Those are the areas that are the most important. But I believe if we look at past practice, we'll see what the best hope is for the future. And I'd appreciate your support on November 7th.
And now we'll hear opening remarks from Dave Alvey. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is David Alvey. I'm a lifelong Wyandotte County resident, 6th generation in Wyandotte County. In my professional life, I have always worked at everything I've done to try and make things better wherever I've worked. So as a teacher, as a coach, as an administrator, as dean of students at Rockhurst High School, my job was to try and make students better students. In my current job as director of professional development for Rockhurst High School, my job is to make the professional culture better so that teachers are better for the sake of students. I've served on the Planning and Zoning Commission of the Unified Government. I've served 8 years on the Board of Public Utilities, and in that capacity, I've also been on the Economic Development and Finance Standing Committee. And I would have to say that, yes, I did, and I will not run from that. I did vote for 7% rate increases for 4 years because that was necessary to make sure that the BPU could do what it is supposed to do, and that is to provide reliable power and safe water for our residents. That's the primary job of the Board of Public Utilities. And we had to do these projects. We had to spend the money, first of all, to take care of our infrastructure. When I came on the board, we had 19 days cash on hand at the BPU. 19 days cash on hand when I first got on means that really the utility is close to defaulting. That's not sustainable. That doesn't serve the residents. We had infrastructure that was 60 years old that had to be replaced. In fact, we could not find parts for some of the pieces that had to be replaced. We have had to build new substations across the city in order to meet the growth. And I will have to say that in all those things, we always put the interest of the ratepayers first. You have to do that. We know that every dollar that we put on our rates comes from our residents, comes from our ratepayers. We have to be aware of that, and we have to make sure that that money is spent appropriately. There's an easy way to get cheap electricity rates, and that is to not have any reliability. But we have met the infrastructure needs, and we have also, met the financial requirements of the utility.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now we'll go to our panel with questions, and we'll start with Elnora Jefferson of the Historic Midtown Association.
Okay.
My questions?
Pardon? You have 2 minutes to respond to questions, and the panelists have the right for follow-up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, thank you very much for coming. We'll just start very easily, okay? All right. What I've noticed is kind of fun preparing for these forums. Not only that, but that it allows an individual to do research and to perhaps discover things that he or she would not normally, just in everyday life. So to be fair and to help the citizens stay abreast of what's important, what about holding, and would you support either semi-annual or annual forums once you're elected in office?
Who goes first, Merle?
Is it him first now? Do we go back and forth?
Yeah, David.
Okay. I think that's a, got to do something about this infrastructure. I would suggest that that's an excellent idea, but I would also suggest and encourage residents to come to the Board of Public Utility meetings, come to your school board meetings, attend the Kansas City, Kansas Community College. You know, we like to see residents, taxpayers, citizens come to the BPU. We need them there. We want them there. Whether they have a complaint, whether they have a concern, we want to hear those because it's the only way anything can get any better. It helps us identify what has to get better. But I would also say that one of the things I would like to do, and in fact I enjoy doing this, is establishing groups around the city, representative groups from mental health, from education, folks from different areas of the city, public safety, and have regular conversations and generate agenda that keeps us abreast, keeps everyone abreast of the important issues and how we're proceeding on all of those things. So I think that's an excellent idea. How that is actually structured, I'm not sure. I want to go back to an issue that was stated. You know, if we're going to be concerned about excess expenditures, we really need to point out that we've been spending $250,000 to $300,000 per year on a security detail for the mayor. I will not do that. We did not need to spend $1 million on the 9th floor offices, including a safe room within the mayor's office. The BPU has had to expend additional monies to bury electrical infrastructure along Leavenworth Road, and that was something opposed by the Board of Public Utilities because there are plenty of infrastructure requirements across the city that we could have spent $6 million on. Burying electrical infrastructure was not a #1 priority. You could drive out here anywhere and find a $6 million project right outside our door.
Mayor, your response.
Your question about the access and transparency are critical issues for me. You've asked about how we would do forums. I've done 21 forums since I've been the mayor. We did 8 listening tours when we had the Star Bonds getting ready to pay off. We did a listening tour in each one of the different districts. We had over 800 people come and give their input about how we should invest the money we've earned from the Star Bond payoff. And if you look at how that money was stated in the listening tour and how it was stated in the budget, the parallel is direct because we listened directly to the people. I also did 4 with the violence in our community, did 4 different forums in the community to talk about how we could grow the community and police relationships. Great partnership with Chief Ziegler in that, had police officers at each one. The challenge with that, though, is we didn't have many young people there. And so we did 10 more at the schools, 1 at each of the high schools and 1 at the community college and 1 at Donnelly College to make sure we got input. We've also done another public forum on Indian Springs and continue that public process. So I'm very supportive of doing the public forums to get input from the public. I also believe in transparency. Not only do I think you should go to the meetings, the Unified Government has all of our meetings on television. So does the Kansas City, Kansas Community College, and so does the school district. The only major public entity that is not on television is the Board of Public Utilities. They don't have it accessible and transparent for the community. The other thing I'd invite you to do is to go to bpu.com and look for the minutes of any meetings. There aren't any, not even the last meeting. But if you go to the Unified Government website, you'll find the minutes for every single meeting we've had for the last 10 years that's sortable. You don't have to ask for it. It's readily available. I believe that we need additional access and transparency, and in my time of mayor, I have moved us forward in both of those areas significantly, and I think there's more yet that we can do.
Okay, we will now move to our next panelist, Mary Rupert with the Wyandotte Daily Online.
Thank you. I have a two-part question, and I think one of you might have already answered part of it. But the first part is about the UG's resolution in June of this year supporting a clean energy economy and a healthy planet and investing in renewable energy and energy efficiency. Do you support this resolution that it's already been passed? And would you support continuing to fund and work on the UG consent agreements with the EPA on the combined sewer overflow? Now that was just the first part of the question. The second was going to ask you about your position on open meetings and records, and if elected, what would you do to further increase openness in government?
Well, I absolutely agree with clean energy and the need to continue to move that forward. I would say the BPU has been a leader in the clean energy area, and I believe they're at 40% renewables right now, and I think that's a great step in the right direction. We are under consent decree for combined sewer overflow. That's a critical issue that every urban community is facing. It's hundreds of millions of dollars. We've been working with the EPA to stretch out the length of time and to also be smart about when we're digging into infrastructure and addressing sewer issues, that at the same time we've overlaid that with our other master plans for water, gas, electricity, and street needs. If we're going to cut open a street and redo infrastructure, we need to do it all at once and coordinate that effort. So I look at it not only as a challenge, but a great economic development opportunity to improve some areas of our community where those combined sewers are now. Open meetings is big. I think again, I've stated my passion for this. When I came on as mayor, the first thing I did is insist that we get cameras to put all of our meetings on TV. The public should be able to see them, and not only so you can watch them live, but also, as I tell everyone, if you have trouble sleeping, you can turn it on late at night and we'll put you right down. Because not all of our meetings are very exciting. But they're all there, and you can go to our website and search any of our minutes that are all accessible online, open data, and then if you want to see the video of that, everything we've talked about is accessible online, including the security detail discussion that was recommended by the Chief of Police. The Chief of Police said, I want to spend 0.5% of my budget to do dignitary security for all of the elected officials. We supported him on that. You can go watch the video right now on YouTube at the Unified Government channel and see the Chief's presentation for yourself. I follow the Chief's recommendations, and I think it's a good policy for all of us. Open meetings are important, open data. I'll close just saying we also have our entire budget online in a sortable fashion so you can see 10-year spending trends in every department, every expenditure.
Okay. Dave Albee.
Yeah, so absolutely. That's why I invite everybody to come to the BPU board meetings. What needs to be discussed, we discuss out in front in the work sessions and in the general session. However, for the BPU to expend $500,000 a year to broadcast those meetings really doesn't seem like a good use, because we have so much infrastructure need at the BPU. We have so many expenditures. We have to make that $500,000 a year really seems just one more burden on our ratepayers. We have people come to our meetings all the time who have difficulty paying their bills. Every time we add a half on there, a 0.5% on there, it's just one more burden. They can't afford to fix their houses as it is, can't afford. Why are we putting additional burdens? And I would go back to the EPA. I have fought against some of the EPA regulations, not because I'm against clean air. Certainly that would be stupid. I am for clean air, but there has to be a fiscally sustainable way to do that. So for instance, the MATS rule, which required the BPU and our ratepayers to expend $250 million in capital costs for the MATS rule, improved our air quality 0.5 of 1%. 0.5 of 1% for a $250 million expenditure for the BPU alone. That doesn't include every other utility across the country that had to comply with the MATS rule, which has since been rescinded, by the way. In terms of the when we go out and ask for rate increases, we take seriously what burden this is going to place on our people. We know we have the lowest electricity rates in the region. You can check that out, the lowest electricity rates in the region. When you start adding on all the UG charges, including a 11.9% pilot, which is the UG tax on the BPU, we could have the lowest city property tax level, not the debt mill levy, just the city property tax level, lowest in 50 years. The pilot is 50% higher now than it was 4 years ago. The promise was to reduce that. It has not been reduced.
Now Valerie Mussett from the Chamber of Commerce will ask a question and start with David Albee.
Thank you very much. I'm actually wearing two hats today. I'm here on behalf of the KCK Chamber and also on behalf of the Fairfax Industrial Association. So if I may, two quick questions with regard to those, both of those organizations. First of all, part of my questions were with you ladies, so thank you very much. So I can move on to another question. We've had great success with the Star Bonds in the Village West and developing out there in the Village West. KU campus has seen wonderful success as well. I'm interested to hear, on behalf of the Urban Core, what are your ideas in order to foster new development down in the Urban Core?
That's great.
Okay. Yes, I think the most important thing we have to do is realize that Wine.EDC, Greg Kindle and Wine.EDC is doing an excellent job recruiting in and retaining companies for Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. He's doing an awesome job, and we need to continue that. I would say also we need to look at the urban core and identify those businesses and those corridors that are most sustainable, really, that have the most like kind of low-hanging fruit. What can we invest more in those businesses, for those businesses in their neighborhood to sustain it, to provide attractive, safe area for further development? We need to target those areas and really devote our resources to those. In some places, I think, let's say even downtown, you could say that we could develop a campus-like feel, just like we've devoted extra security to the Legends to maintain the integrity of the Legends development. We need to do the same thing for downtown. And when I've talked to developers, when they talk about downtown, they say the perception is it's not clean, it's not well maintained, it's not safe, it's not a good investment. We have to find a way to prove to these folks that they can make money here, and we do that by helping them secure their investment. That's the promise of good government. Low burden on taxpayers and the best services possible.
Mayor?
It's a great question. We have really three major centers of employment. Village West has about 12,000 employees. Fairfax has about 12,000 employees, and KU Med has about 12,000 employees. One of the ways, the biggest piece of economic development is making sure we connect our citizens to these jobs. We've done a master plan with KU in the Rosedale area to see how we can rebuild the Rosedale area as a campus feel, building around the power of the Med Center and making sure that we can connect our citizens with those jobs. We're also doing a Northeast master plan right now that Elnora is a part of, and we're working on connecting our citizens to the jobs at Fairfax, but also looking at other redevelopment issues. My signature redevelopment project in the urban core is the Healthy Campus. It's a $40 million capital investment that's going to have a new grocery store and a new community center that's run by the Y. We're working on property acquisition right now. We're completing the final fundraising for the Y. We're working on the LOI for the grocery store. It's really one of the issues of we're chasing a chicken and the egg in the urban areas. We can't get good quality housing until we have amenities. We can't get amenities until we have quality housing. The unified government's going all in on the Healthy Campus to bring the amenities that will help people want to buy and to grow the rooftops in downtown. It's a great plan. It's moving forward. I anticipate we'll break ground in the spring, but it's really been a great project all the way around. The other big urban core development is Indian Springs. We've had some developments come forward that the public was not excited about, and frankly, I was not excited about. And so we've started a new public process to make sure that we get the input from the community so we can hear what people want, and then we can work to develop it as people specify. The key to urban development, as it is everywhere else, is partnership with the community that's impacted and making sure we take the time to listen, which we have done repeatedly. Thank you.
Next, we will ask Edgar Galicius of the Central Avenue Betterment Association to ask questions, and we'll start with Mayor Holland. Edgar?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Talking about the strategy, what would be your strategy for closing the gap between the privileged people and our community base?
That's a great question, Edgar. I appreciate it. We know that Wyandotte County has one of the highest earned wages in the state, but the lowest earned income. because a lot of the people who have the great jobs in our city don't live here. And a big piece is connecting our residents to these great jobs, which is what Wyandotte Economic Development is actively doing with our workforce development in partnership with our community college, our school districts. We're all pulling in the same direction and have put together a lot of new initiatives. I'll give you an example of the new Amazon development, a new $310 million investment. Amazon brought in 3,000 new jobs. We worked with Wyandotte Economic Development to make sure our folks got these jobs, got a first bite at this apple. I'm proud to announce that 36% of those jobs, over 1,000 of those 3,000 jobs, are Wyandotte County residents. It pays half again the minimum wage, which helps bring up the floor from our minimum wage. It also prepares people for careers. Amazon builds classrooms into this building and brings community college professors into the building and pays 95% of someone's associate's degree while you're working there. We also moved our main bus route to make sure that we could accommodate people who didn't have transportation to get to those jobs. Connecting people with our jobs, bringing in jobs, connecting people with jobs, and helping to solve the long-term problems. The next step is going to be quality, affordable housing. A lot of our housing is affordable because it's deplorable. We have to make sure we have workforce development. We have people who get a great new job and take their first paycheck and go somewhere else. We have to have the quality, affordable housing in our community so people want to stay and continue to invest in Kansas City, Kansas.
Okay. Dave Alvey.
Yes, again, that is an excellent question. Of course, this is a long-term problem. It's kind of endemic or systemic to our economy. And, I think one of the big problems is when people do begin to make money and they start getting a nicer house, they start moving around, they look around and they realize the taxes are so high and they believe that the services are not quality, they pick up and they move. And so we have plenty of affordable housing because people have picked up and left. That's a real problem. I would say that when we do bring in jobs like Amazon, $13 to $15 an hour, that's a good part-time job, I think, for most people. But to try and raise a family on $13 an hour, even with benefits, that's a tough sell. I honestly don't know how people do that. So we have to take every effort we can to try, as Mayor Holland says, connect people with jobs, bring jobs in, make sure they're quality jobs, but we also have to continue to focus on reducing our tax burden, which is going to be a tough nut to crack because, folks, we have $500 million in deferred maintenance on 150 unified government buildings and facilities. $500 million in deferred maintenance. We have 15 of our 18 fire stations do not even meet code according to an architect's study. And if we don't find a real solution to this problem of taking care of our infrastructure and generating revenue sufficient to do this, this county will only decline. It can't get any better. And so I think that's going to be our number one priority. When people grow up here and they find good jobs, we have to find a way to keep them here. We've got to find a way to improve services and reduce taxes. That's a long-term problem that we're going to have to address. Finally, I would say this. I would tell Terry Ziegler, if you're watching, Terry, if you're telling me I need to spend $300,000, $250,000 on security, I'm going to say no. As CEO, I would be able to do that. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we will move to Dave Reno from Downtown Shareholders, and we will start with Dave Alvey.
Thank you. A number of questions we had prepared have been answered, so thank you for that. Let me go a little more generally. I spoke to a small business owner on Minnesota in downtown earlier today, and he said to me, Dave, what we really need downtown is more people. So what's your plan to bring more consumers to downtown, and what can we expect to see on that front 6 months from now?
So I'll go back to what I think needs to happen is we have to treat the downtown as a special campus area, which we would devote more resources to streetscaping, to beautify it. We would devote more public safety resources to that area. I think we would work with the small businesses there to say, tell us what problems you face in relationship to the unified government. What can we do to make things better for your business? How can we help you be more successful? I believe that we build a city from the neighborhood up. Good neighborhoods are made up of good families. That was my experience growing up. Good neighborhoods build good communities build a great city. So we have to get back down to the neighborhood level and ask the neighborhoods, whether they're business, whether they're residential, what do you need in your neighborhood to take you one step further? And we have to come up with a long-term plan to do those kinds of things. If we don't have those kinds of conversations, and we have them soon, folks, we're gonna be facing some serious problems. Again, you know, we're gonna have to raise the city debt mill levy in 2019 and 2020. That's a statement from the UG's long-term financial forecast. We only have $70.1 million left in the bonding authority for capital infrastructure in the county. And if we're going to continue to supply $12 to $14 million in road projects and other infrastructure, we're going to have to boost that mill levy up. So even though we've got a 2 mil decrease this year, we're going to have to increase it here in a couple of years, the city debt mill levy. The other thing I want to say about that 2 mil decrease this year, that was not in the works. When the UG government departments submitted their budgets in April, they were told that they were going to be funded at that level. 3 weeks before the budget hearings, they were given 21 hours by email, received an email, they were given 21 hours to cut 2.5% from their budgets. Now, if there was 2.5% of fat in the budget in April, it should not have been there. It should not have been wait till the very end to take it out. They cut into the flesh and the bone of our departments.
Mayor, your response?
Yes, the issues that he mentioned on the debt ceiling are inaccurate, and I don't really have time to cover all the inaccuracies in that, but it's not correct. The plan for more people downtown was the question. And the plan for more people downtown is, one, just creating a new vision, a new passion, a new hope about what is possible down there. I think that's what the Healthy Campus is all about. The Healthy Campus is about showing folks that we're willing to invest in the urban area and do something that's transformative. If you look at some of our neighborhoods, they're growing right now. St. Peter's Waterway is growing. Strugglers Hill is growing. We've got new housing developments in these areas, and they're growing. They're waiting for the amenities so they can grow more. I have a passion for downtown because I believe our downtown is everyone's downtown, and every city should have a quality downtown that's a destination for everyone in the city and not just for those who live there. We also know that Strawberry Hill is going to be the next crossroads. It's booming. If you told people they were going to get priced out of the crossroads 20 years ago, they'd have said you were crazy. We're already seeing people from the crossroads moving over into Strawberry Hill. Again, bringing the amenities downtown is going to bring the people. Bringing people creates the synergy where people will continue to invest. But the downtown shareholders are doing a great job. It is clean, it is safe, it's a great environment. We need to continue to grow it and continue to invest it. But bringing people downtown is not going to happen easily. That's why we're doing the Northeast Master Plan. We've got to get the citizens together. We are having those conversations. We've been having them for years, and we're continuing that to come up with a direct plan. This Healthy Campus came out of public engagement with the citizens when more than 200 people came to our city hall and spent 2.5 hours giving feedback about what they wanted to see downtown. And the Healthy Campus is a result of that, and we've been moving that vision forward. So I'm very excited about our downtown. I think it has a great future. And again, downtown's everyone's downtown, and I look forward to growing it further.
Okay. Let's continue with Dave Reno from Downtown Shareholders with your next question, and we'll start with Mayor Holland.
Well, I think everybody on this panel can agree that a vibrant downtown is necessary for a healthy community. And I understand, Mr. Mayor, that you have a vision for downtown, but Mr. Alvey, I'd like to hear more about your vision for our downtown. You mentioned that we need to work on neighborhoods and businesses, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. Would you elaborate some on that for me?
Sure. So, again, we need to bring folks downtown. We need to develop, there is a lot of empty space in those residential areas surrounding the downtown. When you bring residents in, they will start demanding services, and people will see opportunities to establish businesses. But as those businesses go in, they're going to need to be incentivized at some level, but not bailed out. They need to be, understand that when they go there, they're going to receive, it's going to be a beautiful place, it's going to be a safe place. Those are the kinds of resources we need to devote to that area. I'd like to, quibble a little bit with the Strawberry Hill becoming the next crossroads. I mean, really, we're talking apples and oranges. I love the fact that Strawberry Hill is growing. My mom grew up there. My family has been on Strawberry Hill since 1857. So I'm thrilled that that's happening there. But the crossroads is an area of commercial establishments, warehouses, room enough for art studios, those kinds of things. We're really comparing two different things. However, those areas along Minnesota Avenue could be developed further as that kind of attraction, but it's going to require residents coming in there. Again, the perception of developers is that it's not well maintained and it's not safe. If we don't break that kind of perception, we're not going to bring people in. Finally, I guess I would, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I
Mayor
respond
Holland?
to that as well? I think I do want to say there are growing businesses downtown. If you look at a lot of the investment that's happened downtown, a lot of it is in our Latino community. We have new restaurants, we have new grocery stores. Central Avenue is a testament to the power of immigrants coming with an entrepreneurial spirit. That entrepreneurial spirit of immigration is what started our community and has built it from day one. We're seeing that growing all over our downtown. So it's not to say there isn't new investment and new details downtown. A lot of it is happening. Central Avenue is thriving from 6th Street and all the way out to 18th Street. You also look at Minnesota Avenue. There have been new businesses, small businesses, hometown businesses that have moved here and said this is a great place to live and to raise a family and to start a business. So we do have people doing that. We just need to continue to grow that. It does take time. It's that whole piece of pushing against the flywheel over time to really make it happen. Downtown Shareholders has been doing a great job for years. I think they are just celebrated 10 years of the work that Downtown Shareholders is doing to help it be cleaner and safer, and to help businesses feel pride in investing. But the key to the downtown is having all of the community support it and having amenities down there, attractions down there that people want to come to. Again, attracting people to downtown, not just folks who live there.
Next, we will go to Edgar Galicia with Central Avenue Betterment Association. Edgar?
Would you be for or against an initiative for a municipal ID, and why?
And we'll start with the mayor.
So municipal ID is an issue that communities are using across the country to enable people who don't have challenges getting ID, whether it's seniors who can't drive, whether it's new immigrants who don't have access to ID, or other folks who could use it. We also have a number of people returning from prison who need ID so that they can get a job and get back on their feet. Municipal ID is an option that many cities are using. We're actually exploring it right now with some of our community partners. I know El Centro is interested in it. I know some of the groups that work with the folks coming back from prison are very interested in it. And we've had some advocates from the senior community who have said they're interested in it as well. There's a couple challenges to it. It doesn't serve as a state ID. You can't use it to drive. We do know that there's a number of partners in our community. The Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools have asked that the unified government issue municipal IDs. So has the community college and the library board. They've all said if we had a consistent municipal ID that we could use for our families and for the folks that we're trying to provide services to, it would be a big benefit. So it's something we're looking into. Like anything, it has some logistical challenges in terms of who's going to be responsible for it, who's going to pay for it, how it's going to be tracked. But I think there's a potential benefit there that we're exploring right now. And if it's a way to help people get jobs, if it's a way to help people get services, if it's a way to help people get better education, it's absolutely something we need to do in our community to take a look at. And as we continue to evaluate that, it's something that, of course, it would need to come to the commission for a vote, but we do have community partners that are asking us to do it right now, and we're taking a hard look at it.
Okay. Dave Alvey.
Yes, I think anything that would enable people to raise their families and access services that they need for themselves and their families. If this is something, as Mayor Holland says, that the school districts are asking for, if it's something that people need in order to carry on their daily lives, then we should do something like that. I mean, we have to find a way to help people live their lives, raise their families, build their neighborhoods, build great communities. If that's an obstacle, we have to do something. But I would prefer that we would actually take the discussion, the debate, to the state level, as so far as that is possible, and even to the federal level, if that's necessary. But as a stopgap, it would seem to make sense.
Okay. Now we'll move to Valerie Mussett, our representative from the Chamber and the Fairfax Association.
Thank you. Quick question. Your wish list. What is your wish list specifically in regard to small business, one item each, and specifically to the Fairfax industrial area? As you know, it's the oldest district in the city, 1951. They create millions of dollars in taxes. I know the Fairfax Industrial Association has a board. They've reached out to the UG, and they are working to get some infrastructure and some betterment in that arena. Recently, the police presence has been taken away on a regular basis. So you've heard our wish list, but I'd like to know your wish list. One item each within the Fairfax district, and again, for small business growth, what's the one item you wish could happen?
Dave Alvey.
So I would say for all businesses, but I'm going to say specifically for small businesses, what I would like to have happen is that when any small business owner or someone entrepreneur approaches the city for a new business, whether it's through planning and zoning, whether it's through licensing, permitting, that they walk away from that experience saying, you know what, the unified government staff really worked with me to try and resolve my problems. If they come away with that experience, that's going to encourage more people to invest in our county. I have the same hope for the Board of Public Utilities. We're involved in a strategic planning process, and one of the things we've been advocating for is that the BPU needs to be a problem solver. It should not present problems. We shouldn't be difficult to work with. We should find ways to help people solve their problems and move on and do the good that they want to do. That's what good government does. Good government provides good service at the least burden. If we focus on those things, we're going to attract people. Even if a business comes to us and says after the day is done, you know what, we decided not to open in KCK, but I'll tell you what, they busted to try and help us establish ourselves here. We want that story going out all across the metro. That's the story we need to tell about the unified government and the BPU. And I would say for Fairfax, we have to take care of those important institutions in this county. And Fairfax Industrial District, going way back to Stanley when he established it, has been really a lifeline, a real big support for this community. It needs to continue to be. We have to, again, go to those businesses, go to Fairfax Industrial and say, what is it you need to continue to be successful? What obstacles are we placing in your way? We need to stop putting those obstacles in the way. So ultimately, it's all about putting the government at the service of residents and businesses so they can accomplish the good that they need to do, build their families, build their businesses, build neighborhoods, build a great city.
Mayor Holland?
When I ran for mayor 4 years ago, I used the line all the time that when we have a big business like Cerner come in, we roll out the red carpet, and when we have a small business come into City Hall, we roll out the red tape. And one of my missions as mayor is to break through the red tape for our small businesses. We know the majority of new growth and jobs in our country are small businesses. That's true in our community as well. We put in place a small business concierge to help someone walk through City Hall. We don't aspire to be challenging, but there are a lot of steps that need to happen if you're going to open a business in Kansas City, Kansas, frankly, or anywhere. And the great cities are not ones that remove all their expectations, but are ones that make those expectations accessible to everyone who wants to move through that in a timely way. So we've removed a lot of those barriers. You know, if you have a big development, you'll hire an attorney for $400 an hour who will walk you through it because they've done it many times before. If you're a small business, you can't do that. You have to do it yourself. And so for us to become more business friendly, which we have done the last 4 years, we need to continue to do. And we need to continue to get the message out that this is a great place to build a business in Kansas City, Kansas. The other piece for Fairfax, it is not only the oldest in the city, it's the oldest in the nation. Oldest organized industrial district in the nation. It is a huge asset to us. What I want, my wish list for it, is a better quality of life. For so many years we did industrial, and industrial looked industrial. It didn't look very inviting. Industrial has come a long way in this nation in terms of how it looks and feels, and putting in the kind of amenities that would attract people that want to work there. One of my biggest wish lists, obviously, is having walking trails on our levees. We're the only community in the region that doesn't allow walking trails on our levee trails, and it's a very easy fix. We simply open them. The other issue you raised about police, the police are doing very innovative, tech-driven hotspot policing. The good news is if there's less police presence in Fairfax, it's because there's less crime incidents. So that's good news. We have not, the chief has a very clear path to taking care of Fairfax, and just because we don't have cars rolling through it all the time doesn't necessarily mean that we're not doing everything we can to keep it safe.
Okay. Now we'll move to Mary Rupert with the Wyandotte Daily Online. Mary?
Thank you. The other day I was thinking about Governor Brownback and how the tax decrease was too great in the state of Kansas, and I got to thinking, if you are elected as mayor, how long would you pursue a policy of yours that doesn't work? Would you change course right away, or would you stay with the policy even if it doesn't work? And also, along with that, if you're both favoring lower taxes, how much lower?
Mayor?
Well, that's a great question. So the issue with Governor Brownback, obviously that irresponsible tax cuts at the state side really threw the entire state for a loop, and was a direct quid pro quo from large corporations wanting personal tax breaks, which they purchased through the legislature and the governor. That's been repealed and back closer to back on track. But they obviously have more work to do with the Supreme Court's decision about the schools. So obviously if something's not working, you've got to change direction immediately. Yes, we need to continue to reduce taxes. We need to reduce our utility rates. There's no path in sight for reducing our utility rates. They've only gone up 45% in electricity, 35% in water. That's devastating for our businesses and for our residents to continue to pay those exorbitant rates. We've brought down the property tax rate, and we need to continue to do it, but it needs to be incremental. It didn't go up overnight, and it can't come down overnight, but we have to have a mentality that we're going to continue to make the hard decisions necessary. It's easy to simply increase the rate and just take the money from the public and keep moving. It's much harder to prioritize what we need to do, make smart decisions, and then have a plan and stick to it. The plan that's going to continue to lower our rates, we have to get our rates down to competitive. We need to be competitive with the metropolitan area and other peer cities in Kansas like Wichita and Topeka and Leavenworth. We've got to bring our tax rate down continually to get to that point. But the plan to do it is to continue to grow our tax base. That's why we've been able to bring it down already. We have to continue to address blight. Blight in parts of our city bring down the value and shift the balance of responsibility to other parts of the community. And we also have to continue to address costs. Making the hard decisions to address cost drivers in our unified government is how we're going to continue to bring our tax rate down. We're on the right path, and we need to stay on it.
Yes, it seems to me that the only way that we're ultimately going to meet the $500 million in deferred maintenance cost, which is stated here on page 2 of the fiscal sustainability forecast done by the Unified Government Chief Financial Officer. Page 2, UG's over 150 public facilities and buildings are aging, and these deferred maintenance and infrastructure costs are estimated to total over $500 million. At the bottom it says, capital financing city debt mill rate increase is forecasted in 2019 or 2020 to support annual general obligation bond issuances of $12 to $14 million. So I'm not sure what I was mistaken about before, but this is taken directly from our own Chief Financial Officer. When we bring in investment into Wyandotte County, Mayor Holland brags that we've had $2.8 billion in private investment in the last 4 years. Guess what? We're not feeling it in our neighborhoods. If we could just get, if Brownback gave corporate tax breaks to big businesses in the state, we're doing the same here, folks. You know, how much did they pay for the Dairy Farmers of America? How much of their own money was in that project? How much of that shows up on the tax rolls? $2.8 billion in private investment in Wyandotte County or KCK in the last 4 years. Can we not see, can we not negotiate, and I would do this as mayor, 1% for our residents? That would be $28 million a year. That's a 14 mil decrease and $14 million back into the community for infrastructure costs. Now, I know that we incentivize these projects, we bring them in, but at some point, these things have got to pay their own way. They've got to generate the revenues we need to move this community forward.
Now we'll move to Elnora Jefferson with the Historic Midtown Association.
Okay, thank you. It's a question that I have for both of you. I'd like to consider, if you win, I'd like for you to speak to your opponent's strengths and what you will need from your opponent to make it your office successful. And then on the other hand, if you should lose, what will you offer, because you know your opponent will need that in order to be successful, with the end goal being a successful society, a successful Wyandotte County?
Start with David Alvey.
Well, that's interesting. I have not really thought about that.
Hadn't thought about all my strengths.
I would say, as I said before in the forum before, I think Mark has a tremendous heart for his people, for his community. And so that needs to continue to be brought to bear. That it's going to require goodwill, and there's just tremendous goodwill across this county. And we have to continue to bring that goodwill in, but we have to have the right conversations about how we move forward. And so that goodwill, I think, is the most important thing that, that Mark would bring. I would say the same thing for myself, that I do have great passion and desire for this community. I would also say that my professional experience, for me, it's all about process. I'm all about making processes better, making things work better. You know, as Dean of Students, it's all about making an institution work better so students can study better, working with teachers in a professional culture so that they deliver instruction better, coaches the same. On the BPU, it's always been about how do we make the BPU serve the needs of people better. So I think my capacity to bring good process is a great asset.
Mayor?
Well, I agree. David Alvey is a great person. He's a person of faith. We're both people of faith. He has a beautiful family, all of whom are here tonight. He has a passion for our community. Both of us are generations deep in the community. I'm fourth generation. I think you're sixth generation in Wyandotte County. And it's not just started. It's not like this is the first thing either one of us have done. I've been in elected office for 10 years. Mr. Alvey's been in elected office for 8 years. And we've both been doing the work of the community. And so I would anticipate that would continue, because we were both doing this before we ran for mayor, and I would think we would both continue to do it after we ran for mayor. We had worked for a number of years collaboratively with the BPU and the unified government. We need to continue that. One of the reasons we're successful is because of the collaboration. It's not just the unified government that offers incentives. The Board of Public Utilities offers them as well, offered $1 million to Amazon. And you could ask the question, is that the right investment? That's the question you always have to ask on incentives, whether it's the UG or the BPU. Do you get a good return on investment? It's not whether or not we do it, it's how we do it, and to be smart about it. So I think we've both been engaged in the community. I anticipate we both will be. And if history repeats itself, our kids might be sitting up here in a number of years, and we'll let them deal with it at that point. So, thanks.
Okay. Now we'll move to closing remarks, and we'll start with Mayor Holland. You have 1 minute.
All right, I want to thank everyone for coming out today. We're talking about the real issues in our community. I think past behavior is the best indicator of future support. We've got to lower costs in taxes, and we have to lower costs in utilities. My opponent, again, has raised utility rates, voted 10 times in 8 years to raise our utility rates, 42% on electric and 35% in water. That's simply pricing people out of businesses and out of our homes. The unified government has taken these challenges, and we have a track record. I have a track record of putting together a plan to actually reduce costs over time. The plan is working. We need to continue to grow the economy. We need to continue to address blight, and we need to continue to control costs in the unified government. We're doing it. I look forward to doing it for 4 more years. I'd appreciate your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
David Alvey.
Yeah, I just have to call into question some of the stats. First of all, the easy way to reduce our utility costs is to reduce the pilot, as promised, from 11.9 back to 7.9%, where it was 8 years ago. We only voted twice to vote, just to be clear. We voted once for 7% rate increases for 4 years in a row, and then again for 3 years of 4%. It's not every year we did that, just to be clear how that works, folks. It costs a lot of money to do a cost adjustment. You have to hold hearings. That's very expensive. We're not going to expend that much money. And in fact, the reason we went out for 4 years is because our residents and our consumers were saying, we don't want to have you voting on it every year. We want a long-term thing so we can predict what our costs are going to be. We only spent what we had to spend to provide reliable power and safe water. I fulfilled my responsibility to the BPU, to the ratepayers, by voting for those rate increases to bring reliable power, safe water.
Let's give both the candidates a hand.